Welcome to qnawire.
For this problem, we have f of x equals the sine of x plus the sine of 2x. And the first thing we want to do is graph it on a calculator. So we grab a calculator, we go to y equals, and we type it in. We want the domain to be 0 to pi, so we go to Window, and we can type in 0 to pi for the x range. And then I'm just going to use -6 to 6 for y, and we'll see how that goes. And we press graph. Okay, so what we want to do is use this graph to make a rough sketch of the derivative. Alright, so here's the graph that we just found on the calculator, and now we're going to use it to make a sketch of f prime of x. So notice that right here on the graph, we have an increasing function, but it's getting less and less steep, and the slope is getting closer and closer to 0. So that means that the derivative would be positive, but it would be getting closer to 0. And then throughout the middle section, we see that it's relatively flat, so the slopes are very close to 0, but it looks like it is slightly going up and down. So we might have parts that are kind of sometimes below 0 and sometimes above 0 and sometimes below 0 and sometimes above 0. And then we see in the last section that the graph is decreasing, and so that means we would have a negative derivative. So roughly like this. Now what we want to do is actually calculate the derivative. So we're going to use the chain rule. And so we have the derivative of sine is cosine, so cosine of the inside, multiplied by the derivative of the inside, so the derivative of x would be 1, and the derivative of sine 2x, we would use the chain rule on that as well, and we would get cosine of 2x times the derivative of its inside, and that would give us an extra 2. So if we put that into the calculator and graph that, let's see what we get. So here we see it all typed in, cosine of x plus sine of 2x times 1 plus 2 times cosine of 2x. Okay, so let's look at the graph. And here's what we see, and we're going to compare it to the sketch. And here we have a side-by-side comparison, and you can see that the sketch by hand does look very similar to the sketch from the calculator, or the graph from the calculator.